Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome to the podium the great governor, excuse me, how many times have I done this, John? And I'm blowing it, all right? The governor of the great state of Colorado, John Hickenlooper. So I get a few minutes here, and like everyone here, I want to drench these words in appreciation and admiration for Steve Farber and his remarkable family, for not just his wonderful story, but all the wonderful stories you have helped create over the years. And it is touching to hear all the stories of saving lives that I've heard tonight. And it certainly is commendable to donate a part of yourself, literally, to give another, to allow them to continue living. Like, people would think that as an elected official, that was a Freudian slip. If you've got a chance to read Steve's book on the list, and Steve was very worried that I wouldn't read it, so he actually gave me 2 copies. And in the book, he says, one of the really poignant scenes, towards the end of one of the chapters, he says that transplants are transformative. And he's talking about not just the immediate people involved, but everybody involved in the process. I think that's an understated truth if ever there was one. They give people a second chance of life, but they're transformative in the sense that an organ donation is one of the most profound gestures, one of the most selfless acts that one human can give to another. And what Greg Farber risked and sacrificed for his father was a transformative gift of kindness and an unspeakable act of love beyond words. It's also an understatement to say that Steve and Greg recognize this with each other, that wonderful life-changing, life-saving work of the American Transplant Foundation recognizes that. Their enduring commitment to the transplant community is why you're all here, and I think, I can't help but think of all the flood victims I've seen over the last couple weeks, and can't help thinking what I saw, and when you first go over the helicopter and you see the bridges and the roads and the houses destroyed, but then you see something else. You see people climbing over and walking through and getting across, finding ways to reach one another, to check in on one another, to help one another, to support and help in many ways carry one another. Neighbors who have known each other for years and neighbors who are just meeting for the first time, and see them digging out and lending a hand and smiling and hugging. You see the kindness, the love, and you see community. And these acts are the real bridges in our community. And so all of you out in the transplant community, all of the honorees tonight, and especially Steve and Greg, because we know them so well, personify this. As many of you heard me say before, we are committed to making Colorado the healthiest state. And that starts with keeping people healthy, but it doesn't always work out that way. And it's important to ensure that when people need care, they can get it. And I think that the American Transplant Foundation is doing remarkable work to make sure that vulnerable patients receive transplants to save their lives. So we have an official proclamation. You'll be surprised. It's very short. I know these evenings are always long. Whereas Living Donor Awareness Week creates an important opportunity for every resident of Colorado to educate and be educated about the need for living organ donation. And whereas 2,360 Coloradans are currently on the waiting list for organ transplant, 3 of whom will die each day while waiting for a life-saving transplant. And whereas the American Transplant Foundation is working to increase public awareness to ensure that individuals are aware that a healthy person can become a living donor by donating a kidney or a part of the liver, blood, or bone marrow. And whereas all citizens of Colorado are urged to consider living donation in an effort to save the lives of their fellow residents. And whereas 95% of Coloradans waiting for a transplant could receive a living donor organ, and if just 1 out of 2,000 adult Coloradans became living donors, the waiting list for kidney and liver transplants in the state of Colorado would be eradicated. Whereas it is critical to recognize living organ donation and the effects on the people of Colorado, therefore I, John W. Hickenlooper, Governor of the state of Colorado, do hereby officially proclaim, and I do this with great hope that all of us will spread the word, September 21st to 28th to be Living Donor Awareness Week.